As today is the 4th of July, Independence Day here in the US, and this month we are looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, it seems like a good day to look at a movie that focuses on a very American idea, the action hero. Nothing screams American cinema as much as rough-talking, rule-breaking, shoot first and never ask questions kind of hero. This movie doesn't quite play by the rules, though, as it takes that type of hero and pulls him into the real world. Fair warning, we are going to have to broad stroke some of this as the entire runtime of the movie is a whopping 2 hours 10 minutes. I'm Ollamh, and welcome to Geek Corner Review's Last Action Hero. We enter into the movie with a massive police action on Christmas, which is a lot more common than most people realize for action movies. Our hero of the movie, Jack Slater, comes walking in over the roofs of the police cars. His chief yells at him as he ignores all orders and protocol and enters the building and confronts the bad guy of this film. Just as things are really ramping up to the climax, we find out that this is a movie within a movie. The boy Danny, the only one interested in actually watching the Slater film, goes to talk to the projectionist as the film has gone out of focus. It turns out he's a huge Jack Slater fan and gets an offer to see the new movie before it's released, provided that he spends some time in school. This story is set in New York, which is the gritty, grimy era where there are apparently no cops anywhere. The boy Danny shows up late to school, not that anyone seems to notice, and daydreams about Arnie playing a much more action-packed Hamlet.
No, I said he wasn't at school today. He's sick as a lamb, poor dog.
Oh, I guess someone did notice that he wasn't at school, but his mother covers for him, but isn't really happy about it. Danny starts to head out to the movie later on, but it seems that the neighborhood is horrible as someone breaks in to rob him, but only to complain about the fact that they have nothing of value.
No VCR, a shit TV that'll get me $20.
Not surprising, as this is a single mother and child living in a rundown apartment in a bad neighborhood in New York in the early 90s. What did the guy really expect? Danny goes to the police station to report the crime and is told by the police officer that his mother said to go straight home. Apparently, the police don't care if the kid wanders the streets of New York. He barely makes the preview screening of the new Slater movie, which is obviously where he's going to go. This brings us to the 15-minute mark of the movie. It's all defining and building the character of Danny, but does it really need to take that long to tell us that he's a depressed kid that uses movies to escape his crappy life? Finally, Danny is given a magic ticket that was originally given to the projectionist by Harry Houdini. We're introduced into the main villain of this actual film, Benedict, who can apparently hit a target from a pool length away without even looking. As the action ramps up, we see the magic ticket working and blast the kid into the movie. We then see a rapid succession of action movie tropes, bad puns,
That guy, cone of phrase.
stunt driving, random vehicles exploding, and amazing shooting. It also appears that the movie worlds collide and there's only one movie police department, as Sharon Stone's character, Catherine Trammell from Basic Instinct, and Robert Patrick as the T-1000 from Terminator 2 walk out, which is going to be a little confusing later on. We see Slater go through all the classics, talking to his ex-wife and playing a recording to fool her and getting yelled at by his chief. Danny brings up information that he saw in the movie but the characters don't know that they are in a movie. So it seems like he's tied up in everything. And apparently in this world they even have fetish police, which somehow isn't the weirdest thing in this department. Slater gives Danny a chance to prove that they are in a movie, so they go to a Blockbuster's. For those of you too young, Blockbuster was a chain of stores where you could rent these things called movie cassettes and eventually DVDs before Netflix took them out of business. This is where things get a bit confusing. Not that Stallone replaces Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2, but that we saw the T-1000 walking out of the police station earlier. That means that the villain from that film exists in this world, but is also just part of a movie. Danny also brings up about how all numbers start with 555, but is foiled by the concept of area codes. As Danny takes Slater to the house where the bad guys are, we realize just how tight some of the shooting schedule really was, to the point where the audio didn't come through for several lines and had to be dubbed. But it was done in a very echoey room, which makes it painfully obvious.
All the courses that I've taken in surveillance, hostage negotiation, in criminal psychology. I mean, all I had to do is just drive around the neighborhood.
You think you're funny, don't you?
I know I am. I'm the famous comedian Arnold Braunschweiger.
After a short confrontation, Benedict realizes that the kid knows things he could not know.
He had one on the bullseye when he was with his second cousin. He hates his boss. He calls him a Sicilian schmuck.
Soon we realize that Slater's life isn't as great as it seems. He's plagued by the memory of his son being killed by the Ripper, and later he takes Danny back to his home, which is completely barren with only one outfit in his closet. Since the writers never wrote anything about Slater's home, it's just kind of there. Benedict shows up to Slater's daughter's home and interrogates Danny about how he knows so many things and winds up taking the magic ticket. He manages to get away and discovers that he can leave the movie. Danny and Slater start putting things together. Leo the Fart is going to have a funeral soon, but his big body is packed with nerve gas. Slater and Danny, after a few problems, finally get up to the funeral, steal the body, and dump it, along with Slater, into the tar pits. Thankfully, the tar is thick enough to contain the nerve gas. And since this is still a movie, Slater cleans himself off with just a few napkins.
Thanks, honey.
Wait a minute. No one finds this a little convenient?
Whitney, Slater's daughter, shows up in her truck, which Slater and Danny take to confront Benedict, which feels like the wrap-up to the movie, and it kind of is. A full 1 hour and 25 minutes into this movie, Benedict escapes using the ticket, and Danny takes Slater into the real world, where he has a tough time dealing with reality. He quickly finds out that cars don't blow up when you shoot them. Punching through glass hurts.
It really hurts.
And you have to check that people are really dead. He also proves that he's smarter than Danny thinks. While playing chicken is going to result in a crash, he knew the car that he was driving had standard driver's side airbags, while the taxi didn't. Danny takes Slater home, where he's confused for Arnold, and gets along with Danny's mother quite readily.
You could have taken 2 minutes to call your mother.
Why didn't you tell me you had no friends? And what is this business about going to the movies at midnight when you knew your mother would be worried?
With the way they're talking and really just kind of meshing, I'm pretty sure that Danny's hero just totally banged his mom. We also realize that Slater has never heard classical music.
What's that?
You like classical music?
I don't know. think I will.
It's not something that plays for the hero in action movies, so he's never heard it before, but realizes he likes it. Benedict, meanwhile, realizes that New York is very different from movie land LA. He can kill somebody, yell about it, and no cops show up. Nobody seems to care. He also puts together the plan to bring the Ripper out of an earlier Slater film and send him after Schwarzenegger. If he kills the actor, then the character can't continue to exist. There's a lot of confusion about characters and actors, with Slater being confused by Arnold himself for a lookalike, and ends with a rooftop confrontation in the rain, much like the starting scenes.
The gun away, right? We did that part, and then you tell me to let the kids go, and I'm getting bored. Why don't we just skip to the end?
Slater defeats the Ripper, saves Danny, and then gets shot by Benedict. Once Slater blows up Benedict, the ticket is lost and accidentally brings Death out of the movie The Seventh Seal, only this time played by Ian McKellen. As Slater is laying dying in the theater, Death comments how he doesn't have Slater on his list, but Danny is and will die a grandfather. He also points out that there's two halves to the ticket. Slater is finally brought back into the movie, where his wound is barely a scratch. And thank goodness the fetish police are still around. The ticket starts to stop working as Danny escapes back into the real world. Slater starts getting kind of meta with his movies and his newfound realization.
It's working again.
You know why you're shouting? Because it's in the script. You're the comic relief. Yes. And you know what else? I am the hero. So shut up!
And with that, the movie ends. And that was a brief overview of the 1993 movie Last Action Hero. It's an interesting idea about how a real-world kid would deal with things in a movie and how an action movie character would deal with the real world. In many ways, they could have, and in my opinion should have, balanced the two better. When Danny goes into the movie, does that mean we have to watch the entire movie play out? Danny didn't get into the movie until about the 25-minute mark, then out of the movie at the 1 hour, 25-minute mark, and then back in at the 2 hour mark. Most of the time was spent in the movie within a movie. Slater only had about half an hour of screen time in the real world, which feels kind of like a missed opportunity. How great would it have been to see Slater have to deal with real cops, or Benedict deal with real gangsters, and Danny actually learning something other than just having a fun romp with his hero. In the end, nothing really changes for Danny, which kind of solidifies him as a sidekick. Slater learns to manipulate things in the movies, but Danny still lives in the bad part of New York, which is still crime-ridden, and his life still sucks. All things considered, it's not a bad movie, but it's not really a great movie. There's plenty of areas for improvement, but there's also a lot of great humor and action. I think that if they had just left it at just action and comedy, it would have been wonderful. But they tried to put in a dose of drama and suspense as well, which just feels like too much. But as with all our non-gaming videos, it's not just a summary, but a starting point for conversations. What do you think of Last Action Hero? Was it too egocentric and focused on Arnold, or was it just poking fun at his normal fare? Do you think the balance of action, comedy, and drama worked, or would it have been better with only two genres? Leave a comment down below, send us a tweet or a post on our Facebook page, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to press the subscribe button down below so that you can stay tuned for more from Ollamh Productions.
If
Here we go.
Must have been the runt of the litter.
Is that a cat joke? You really get doing a cat joke here? Ming the Merciless shows his name isn't just a clever alliteration as he tries to pry information out of Gordon's wife and results in killing her.